welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and the Department of Agriculture and the Marine has allowed for the Beef Data Genomics programme and GLAS to be extended for a rollover period of 1 year in 2021. To tell us more about these schemes, I'm joined by Teagasc Beef Specialist Alan Dillon and Teagasc Environmental Specialist Catherine Keena. Catherine, firstly, what does a GLAS extension mean and to whom does it apply?
Farmers who joined the first two GLAS schemes, there were 3 GLAS schemes, and farmers who joined in 2015 early in the year got a couple of months in 2015, and then they had 5 full calendar years. Farmers who joined GLAS 2 at the end of 2015 got 5 straight calendar years, so they caught up with the GLAS 1s. So those farmers have their contracts were due to run out at the end of 2020. Whereas there are farmers in GLAS 3 who have another year of their 5-year contract left. So it's the GLAS 1s and 2s that it applies to.
And can new farmers join GLAS?
No, it's not open to new people. This is just an extension of the existing contract. So it's literally like having a 6-year contract instead of a 5-year contract. But obviously the farmers had only committed to 5. So if they want to opt out, there's absolutely no penalties. There's no problem. They're finished in GLAS unless they request this extension. And it's literally like an extra year. As I said, 6 instead of 5.
That's great. And can there be any changes made to their GLAS plan if there's an extension?
Now, this is really important. In general, for most farmers, absolutely no change. The only changes that can happen is if you lose rented or leased land, because obviously you may not have a control of that. You had an agreement for 5 years, but no longer. So if you lose rented or leased land and you have GLAS actions on that land, there is no problem. You do not pay back the money as you would normally have to do. And even if it's a priority action, and these were special actions that got people priority access into the scheme, there's no problem there. So you carry on if you lose rented or leased land. And the other change is not so much a choice, but by the law, the fact that farmers who are in nitrates derogation, some of the actions are now covered under the nitrates derogation, such as the low emission slurry spreading, which came in 2020 from the 15th of April, and the fencing of the water courses, which is coming in from 2021 for derogation farmers. So because now those farmers have to do those 2 actions to comply with, to avail of the nitrates derogation, they cannot get paid for them under GLAS. So there's kind of a big decision there for those. If they have those actions on their plan, they can carry on. Again, no problems with the other actions. No problem if they happen to be the action, the priority action that got them in. So the farmers with leased rented land or in derogation have to consider what actions will be left and if it's worth their while or whatever. But in general, I mean, if there's no matter how much money they're getting, if it's some is better than none, as long as there's no other complications. Now, farmers, when they get the letter, will see the list of actions that they have agreed to 5 years ago. And again, it's worth just making sure that that they're happy with what they're meant to be doing before they extend it.
You touched on it there, Catherine, but what are the payment rates for the extension period?
The payment rates are exactly the same, Catherine. So no difference. So if you happen to be getting the maximum in both of those schemes was 5,000, other than a small number of farmers who were in GLAS Plus. So the maximum was 5,000. Not everybody was getting that, but if that's what you are getting, and if there are no changes, that's what you will get for the next year, or whatever rate you are getting. So absolutely no change to the rate. So unless you drop actions for the reasons that I spoke about, there will be no change to the payment.
That's great. And completing a nutrient management plan would have been one of the major requirements for GLAS. Do farmers have to now prepare a new plan or amend the existing NMP plan?
Yes, it was. It was kind of a requirement to have a plan. But following on from then, you didn't have to keep it updated, and you don't have to do anything special for the GLAS extension, but it is worth remembering that farmers in GLAS are the same as all other farmers under the nitrates, and if for them to use if they have soil samples, you know, to get maximum value, it can be worthwhile getting soil samples and using the fertilizer. You can only use the fertilizer according to soil samples. So while it's absolutely, there's no change, no requirement for people in GLAS compared to those outside, but it certainly is something that's worth kind of considering if they need to update for their own benefit.
When do farmers need to apply by to extend their GLAS plan?
The 31st of December, so the last day of this year, the farmers must reply, and it's really important. If they don't reply by then, it's taken that they do not want to extend their contract. So the 31st of December, but most people, I'd say, Catherine, will have applied by now. But just if there's anybody, I suppose we're just reiterating to catch the last few that might have missed out.
And how do farmers go about applying for the extension?
Those GLAS 1 and GLAS 2 farmers will have got a text, and they may have replied to the department DAFM space Y if they want to carry on, or DAFM space N if they don't, or they can go in on the ag food and tick the box there, or most of them will talk to their advisors, or the advisors will have talked to them, and the advisor can do it for the farmer, but obviously it needs to be in consultation. So definitely the advice would be, to make sure you have already been in contact with your advisor.
That's great, Catherine. Alan, the Beef Data Genomics programme was also extended for a rollover period of 1 year. Who can and can't apply?
Basically, Catherine, it's those who completed all the tasks in BDGP 1 for 2020. So the farmers will have got a letter in the last week saying whether they're eligible or not to actually continue for 12 months if they so wish in BDGP 1. Basically, there was 2 tasks that are essential for someone to have been allowed to move into the extended year. The first one is the 50% 4 and 5 star heifer requirement for the 31st of October of 2020. And the other is the stock bull, the 4 or 5 star stock bull requirement, or the 80% 4 or 5 star AI requirement. And the stock bull had to be on the farm on the 30th of June this year. If you failed either of them, you're not eligible to be carried on into the extension for the scheme as it stands. Okay, and you will have been written to by the department in the last week with a letter outlining the reasons for this. If you are not accepted and you wish to appeal it, there is an appeals mechanism, and it is written in the letter to you as to how to go about that. But there's basically anyone who achieved the requirements for the genotyped heifers and cows, or the stock bull requirement, is eligible to carry on for an extended year.
And can farmers that were not in BDGP 1 now apply to join BDGP for 1 year?
No. Basically, it's only people who were in the original 6-year scheme. New entrants are not allowed. It's the very same as it is in the GLAS, and it's basically just a year added on to the initial phase.
That's great, Ellen. What requirements do applicants have to comply with?
Okay. Basically, it's the same as BDGP 1. You have to record your calving details. You have to do your surveys, and let's say, the health of your calves, docility, bull performance, etc. You have to complete a carbon navigator. You have to genotype 60% of the calf suckler cows reference number in 2014. So genotyping is continuing on, but it's your original reference number you're using. So if you had 30 cows and you had to genotype 60% of them for last year, it's 60% again this year, so it's 18. It doesn't change. It's whatever number you did in 2020, it's the exact same this year. And then again, you also have to maintain that figure of 50% genotype reference animals over 16 months of age in 2021 as well. It's the exact same as what you did this year. So if you had to have, we'll say, 50% of your 15 heifers and cows, 4 and 5 star on the 31st of October this year, it's the exact same for 2021. And also the stock bull requirement. You have to either have a stock bull of 4 or 5 star on replacement or terminal index, or use 80% AI usage of 4 and 5 star bulls. They have to, that is the exact same, and those stock bulls have to be on the farm again on the 30th of June. It's basically a mirror of what you did this year into 2021.
And how do farmers go about applying?
Okay, there's two simple ways of doing it. The first one is you'll probably have had a text, most farmers in the last few days, with saying, do you want to continue in the BDGP for 1 year? And you text back DAFMY if you want to continue, or DAFMN to the number that sent you the message. If you don't want to continue the scheme, so it's up to yourself to decide. You text Y, DAFMY if you do want to continue, and DAFMN if you don't want to continue. The other option is to go through Ag Food. If you go into your Ag Food, you'll see a new tab on it that says BDGP. You click into that, click on the required buttons on the page, and that will allow you to apply as well. There is an issue at the minute, just today as we're talking, with that screen for some people that are in partnerships. That the screen, the BDGP tab is not working on the agfood.ie website. I'm assured by the department that is going to be fixed very, very soon. But just if someone clicks in, it generally seems to be people who are in registered farm partnerships. There seems to be a bit of an issue with it. So that's just one thing to remember there. If you don't get a text for some reason, or if you can't apply through Ag Food if the screen isn't working, an email to beef schemes is not allowed. For some, there is an email address that some people may have used in the past, beefschemes@agriculture.gov.ie. The department are not accepting applications through that or by written letter. So if you're having trouble with either the text or the Ag Food website, the advice is to ring Portlaoise or Cavan, the department offices there, and they will talk you through what has to be done and try and rectify the situation for you.
When do farmers need to apply by, Ellen?
The 15th of January. So it's a bit more time than there is with the GLAS, but people might want to just keep that date in their head if they are trying to make a decision as to whether they're going to go ahead with the scheme or not. People will need to, sit down and think, right, am I going to have the required number of eligible animals this year? Am I going to have the stock bull in place? Genotyping, am I going to have enough stock to genotype? And if some people are changing their farming systems, I'm aware that there's talk of that happening. Look, they need to sit down and plan this through and be sure they want to continue or not continue. But it is open there, and there's a window there of opportunity, a short window for people to apply.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. So the deadline for the BDGP is the 15th of January 2021, and the deadline for GLAS is the 31st of December 2020. Thanks very much, Alan and Catherine, for joining me on the show.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Catherine and Alan for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen to Apple and Google podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Happy Christmas to all our listeners. I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.